supposedly the Commanders have interest in. I also see a tweet from Josh Taylor. He covers the draft, college football guy. He wrote, heard from a 49ers source that Washington has interest in Jimmy G, has since last year, but Jimmy would, quote, probably say no.
Wow, Jimmy G.
Jimmy G has a no trade clause till March 16th. The
Jimmy
49ers likely want to do good by Jimmy.
That is
Just yeah.
that is alarming. I can understand being turned down for Russell Wilson.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I'm trying to get on board with this Carson Wentz trade. I really, truly am. I want to buy in. But every time I get to the checkout, okay, every time I get right before I'm supposed to board this Carson Wentz train, they tell me that my credentials aren't enough, that they're invalid. And it's just hard for me to reconcile in my brain that this move makes a ton of sense for us from this standpoint. Now, again, the compensation, nothing. I don't care about 2 third-round picks that in a third that could turn into a second. Now, I would prefer not to give up a second-round pick. But look, at the end of the day, if this guy works out, it's nothing. It's peanuts that you've just given up, okay? Yeah, the $23 million in cap space and the 28 overall that we're going to pay Carson Wentz, a lot of money. Yeah, look, I don't care about any of that stuff. I told you that already. I don't worry about the cap space. I let the people in the front office worry about that. Okay, that's not something that's going to prohibit us from doing the things that we want to do. There's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way when it comes to the cap. So I'm not worried about cap space, okay? Not worried about the compensation given up. That's the furthest thing from my mind. The thing I keep harking back to is, and it's not even Carson Wentz's play necessarily on the field, because even that gives you a bit of pause, but you can find a way to reconcile that in your brain. You can always tell yourself, it was just 2019 when he was 30 over like 7 or 8, and he was throwing a football to Greg Ward and clowns like that and leading them to, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and he was leading them to an NFC East crown, you know, and a playoff berth. So you can reconcile these things in your mind. And a lot of people have thrown out, hey, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Those numbers are cool. But again, every number tells the story, okay? When you look at numbers, there's a story there. If you don't know the full story, you only know half of it, then you don't have the full picture. So the 30 over 7 is cool, but when you get into the meat and potatoes, the context of that 30 over 7, there are some issues in there. Still, you can reconcile that in your brain that he can play at a high enough level to lead this team to the postseason. Okay, the NFC is not a juggernaut, right? Not just the NFC East. The NFC conference is there to be had. It's wide ass open. So you're not worried about, you know, his play on the field necessarily. If we add weapons around him, he might be able to play at a relatively high level. The part that continues to irk at me, gnaw at me, and make me give pause to this entire situation. The reason I can't get on the train yet and my credentials are invalid is because I want to believe that he's not a terrible teammate and that the rumors that have been out there about him not taking the coaching, tough coaching well, and him being, you know, somewhat thin-skinned. Me and my buddy were talking and we said it's all about what's in between the ears with Carson Wentz. It has nothing to do with his physical makeup. His DNA is perfectly fine. 6'5", you know, 225, 230, athletically gifted, can throw the football anywhere on the field. The physical makeup is there. It's all mental with him. It was in Philadelphia. He couldn't handle the fact that he wasn't the one to lead them to a Super Bowl championship, but rather that was Nicholas Foles. He couldn't deal with that. Okay, he couldn't deal with the fact that the next year after the Super Bowl run, he gets hurt again and Nicholas Foles almost takes him back to the NFC Championship game. He couldn't deal with that fact. So they had to trade Nicholas Foles away to make him feel comfortable. Okay, he goes out, leads them to a divisional crown the following year in 2019. Then they draft Jalen Hurts because he gets hurt again, which has been a theme throughout his career. He gets hurt towards the end of the season. Okay. And so they say to themselves, we got to have a credible backup. They never drafted Jalen Hurts to be anything more than an insurance policy. I said it when they did it, and that was the intent by Howie Roseman to get Jalen Hurts. If they were looking to replace or push Carson Wentz with competition. They would have drafted a guy in the first round. That was never the intent. The intent was always to get him a credible backup, similar to the Saints, similar to Nicholas Foles and what he provided them when he was in Philadelphia. So it was never to push Carson Wentz. It was always to just make sure that if he went down, we had a guy that could pick the baton up and continue to run with it like Foles did. He took that as a threat, which most guys do, okay? And instead of him using that as motivation to play better, it started to affect his play. And they ultimately got rid of him. There were rumors about him having cliques and factions in the locker room, him not taking the coaching, hard coaching well, things of that nature. And so he gets shipped off to Indianapolis. Frank Wright, I'm pretty sure, banged the table for him and said, hey, I know what this guy is capable of. Let's bring him here. I can get the most out of him. He didn't play poorly. All right. He didn't play up to the standard that they were hoping, but he didn't play poorly. And by all accounts, Frank Wright was on board with bringing him back. The players on the field, if you look at the tweets, and I've seen tweets from multiple players, Darius Leonard was not happy. Okay. He's like 5 years in the league, 5 different quarterbacks. I'm sick of this shit. Hey, Carson, good luck to you and whatever you do in your future stop. Like, it was not only Darius Leonard, but there were several other teammates, Michael Pittman Jr. included, that were all backing Carson Wentz and said, hey, loved him as a teammate, wish him nothing but the best. So I don't think the teammates in the locker room had an issue with him. But I do think there may have been a few coaches on the staff. I think there was some upper management. Chris Ballard and owner Jim Irsay were definitely irked by Carson Wentz for whatever reason. And if you read some of the articles, and I've read just about everything that's been out there, because I wanted to give you guys a couple of days, 48 hours to decompress, kind of internalize what we just did, and now give me your reaction. Because when it's raw, when the emotion is raw, when you are just hearing the information for the first time, your first emotion is usually the right emotion. Now, you don't always react the right way, but the way you feel in that moment is usually your most pure emotion. I can't stand this trade. Oh, I love this trade. The more time you give yourself, the more you usually try to psych yourself up or convince yourself that it was a good idea. The first reaction is usually your most genuine, okay? It's not always the right reaction, but it's your most genuine. It's how you truly feel. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to then take a step back, analyze and internalize the situation. And then if you feel the same exact way, I hate this trade, then you hate this trade. If you come back and you say, all right, it's not as bad as I thought originally, then let's see where this goes. But for me, I still struggle because I can reconcile everything else. Like I told you, I can reconcile the draft picks. I can reconcile the cap space. I can reconcile his play on the field. I can reconcile all of those things. I can convince myself that this is fine. In all of those areas, what I still struggle with is the mental aspect with Carson Wentz, because there are still people out there saying, hey, this should not preclude you from drafting a guy at 11 if you love him. And I don't disagree with that. But what I'm telling you is if you draft a guy at 11, you've essentially wasted $30 million because Carson Wentz is going to go to shit, which that's what I'm essentially trying to tell you. Okay, so listen to what I'm saying. Ignore the fact that I look like I'm Amish right now and I'm someone's rabbi. Ignore the fact that I look that way. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth right now. And I'm telling you, if you go out and you put a young quarterback behind Carson Wentz, it's just like 2020 all over again with Jalen Hurts. It's just like 2018 all over again with Nicholas Foles. He will not thrive in that environment. To me, you can't draft a rookie. You can't. And there are a lot of people saying you should still draft a rookie. If you do, you just wasted $30 million and a couple of third-round picks. Because in my mind, if this thing goes south, there's no way this guy's playing 70% of the snaps. No way. So we'll see what happens with this situation. The mental side of things is what worries me. And the fact that the Colts were so willing to part ways with him after 1 year. Like they felt like this is what they had to do. That troubles me a bit. I'm still trying to make sense of it all. There's something, I told you guys in the moment, there's something amiss here. You don't just give a guy away after a year where you give up a first and a third round pick. You don't just give that guy away. It's not like Carson Wentz was awful last season. It's not like he was 16 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, okay, with another 7 fumbles tacked on top of the 14 INTs. He wasn't horrible last season. He just didn't do enough down the stretch. I talked about that Raiders game where I said there was no reason for them to lose to the Raiders at home. And he followed that up with a dud against Jacksonville. Would you talk to any Indianapolis Colts fan, they'll tell you, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, we never win in Jacksonville. I remember 2 years ago, they went there week 1 with Phillip Rivers, and they lost. That was the Jacksonville Jaguars' only win of the season. They went there and they lost week 1. And I said, maybe Jacksonville's not as bad as we thought. And they proceeded to lose every single game the rest of the season. They struggle in Jacksonville. No excuses. He didn't get it done. Bottom line is, something is up. And here's my last thought, and then I'm going to get out of here, and I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section. Leave a like. You know what it is. All right? And I want to hear from you guys as to how you feel about this after having some time to decompress. For me, this isn't the place for a guy with a fragile ego and a DNA mental makeup that needs to be coddled. This is not the environment for him. This isn't the place for him. Because we don't do a great job of taking in the guys that have special needs. Okay? Our guys have to already come equipped with the ability to deal with bullshit. You have to come with that already assembled in the package. Okay? That can't be sold separately. If it is, you're not going to make it here in Washington. Carson Wentz doesn't come with the ability to deal with the bullshit. He doesn't come equipped with that in the package. That's sold separately when it comes to Carson Wentz. That's never a recipe for success here in Washington. If you can't deal with adversity, controversy, and a market that is starving to win, and if you don't play well, they're going to turn on you. If you can't deal with these things mentally, this isn't the place for you. And Carson Wentz has struggled with that. And I don't see this coaching staff having an issue bending and being malleable in terms of the way they coach Carson Wentz. But no one's looking to tiptoe and pussyfoot around a guy, no matter what position you play, including quarterback. If you F up, you need to get your ass reamed just like the other 52 guys on the roster. And we shouldn't feel bad for doing it. There's a way to go about it with certain guys. Everyone's not wired the same. And this is where coaching comes into play. You got to know who you're dealing with. But at the same time, when I come to you with an issue and I address it with you, you can't be in your feelings, especially if I do it in a respectful manner. We continue to hear the same thing with Carson Wentz, no matter how you go about it with him. When you try to show him a little bit of tough love, when you try to come down on him for a mistake, because he makes a ton of mistakes, he does not handle it well. That's a common theme from Philadelphia and both Indianapolis. Why is that going to change here in Washington? That's the reason my credentials are invalid, and I can't find a way onto this Carson Wentz train quite yet. That's the one thing that's stopping me from getting on board and saying, hey, full steam ahead, let's go. Let's leave the station, let's go, I'm ready. Eventually, I don't have a choice. The deed is done. But it just makes you wonder. Can he find a way? Usually when you get to this point of your life, not just in sports, but in your life, but specifically we're talking about sports. When you get to this point of your career, you are who you are. Your mental makeup is what it is. He's not changing here in Washington. He's not just going to wake up suddenly and say, hey, this is my last chance. Whatever they tell me to do, however they coach me, I've got to be able to adapt and adjust and take it for what it is. The criticism that comes my way, I've got to take it as constructive criticism. and not being defensive and getting into my feelings. I've got to be able to adapt and adjust and just be one of the guys. I don't think that's who he is. Anyway, what do you guys think? Last thing, I told a story. Last thing. Another thing that I struggle with, and I told you we were desperate. And everybody can see that now. Yeah, I told you this 2 weeks ago, we were desperate, and it came to fruition on Wednesday, right? But here we are. You heard the soundbite that I played to start the show. I find it very interesting that Washington was interested in Jimmy Garoppolo, and I believe this is true. I told you nobody wants to come here. That if Washington were interested in Jimmy Garoppolo, he could have turned them down essentially and said, no, I don't want to go there. You know what's worse than not having a seat in a game of musical chairs? You know what's worse? Having not being picked in a game of pickup basketball, or in this case, not being picked in a game of free agency quarterback. So you've got two team captains, and you've got, in this case, quarterbacks. So you got Russell Wilson, and you got Carson Wentz, and you got Jimmy Garoppolo, and you got Aaron Rodgers. So you got all these guys. They're all team captains. And they get to pick a team that they want to play for. You don't want to be the guy, or in this case, the team, that just gets left and nobody picked you. See, losing in the game of musical chairs just means, damn, we had a chance, we just weren't fast enough. We didn't get to it fast enough. You know what I'm saying? They're releasing some elite and some very rare shoes at 10 o'clock online. You just weren't fast enough. Your fingers weren't fast enough. You didn't have a bot. You didn't win. You didn't get there fast enough. So they're sold out. That sucks, but it's not an indictment on you in terms of your ability to pay for the shoes. You're not broke. It's just you weren't fast enough to get to them. You can reconcile that in your brain. You know what's tough to stomach? Is that there's a raffle for those same shoes. You put in for the raffle, you win the raffle, and it's hard to win the raffle. You win the raffle, and then you find out, damn, I got 2 overdraft charges. I can't afford these shoes. That hurts. And it's embarrassing. What's embarrassing is when you let everybody know you need a quarterback and you'll do anything in your power to get it. And the first guy you want says, hell no. The second guy says, no thanks. I think I'll go to Denver. Clearly picking Denver over you. No excuses. No equivocations. He didn't want to come here. He wanted to go to Denver. The next guy, Jimmy Garoppolo, says, I got a no trade clause and I'm not afraid to use it. I'm not going to Washington. You hear that and you say, you know what? I don't want to be the team that gets turned down by every single quarterback and I look like I can't get a guy. So instead of looking like the team that can't get a guy, I'm going to go out and pick a guy that doesn't have a choice, that doesn't have a no trade clause, that can't say no. So I don't look like a dumbass out here in these streets because everyone is turning me down and no one wants to come to my team. And I solve a problem that I said I was going to solve this offseason. So I killed 2 birds in one stone. This is starting to feel more like that and less like a game of musical chairs where we just didn't want to end up without a chair. Because that's different. Okay? This is starting to feel like nobody was going to choose us. So we had to go out and choose somebody so we don't look like we couldn't get a date to the prom. That's a tough existence and a bitter pill to swallow if you're a fan. That's tough. Because as you heard in that soundbite, it's one thing if Russell Wilson says, nah, I'm good. I'm a future Hall of Famer. I'm good. I get to choose where I go next. It's another thing if it's another thing too, and it's the same thing really. If Aaron Rodgers says the same thing, hey, I'm a future first ballot Hall of Fame. I get to choose where I go. I'm gonna stay in Green Bay. You can swallow that pill. It's bitter, but you can swallow. It's not a horse pill. When Jimmy Garoppolo looks at you and says, nah, I'm good, where do you go from there? He's not the type of guy that you allow yourself to be denied by. Like, he can't turn you down. What do you mean no? You Jimmy Garoppolo. Bitch, please. That's when you got to go trade for Carson Wentz. So you don't look like the guy that can't get a date. If we making moves because of shit like that, we're in far worse trouble than I thought before, okay? So there's a lot of emotions going through my mind right now. Eventually, we don't have a choice. Much like with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't have a choice. I'll come around. I'm not there yet. Where are you in this situation? Talk to me. Leave it down below. There's been a lot of reaction. You've probably heard a million people talk about this situation, and there's a lot of information to take in. Where do you stand now? Leave it down in the comment section. I can't wait to read your responses. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. You know what this is, okay? If you enjoyed this content, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until next time, post up and take command. You know what it is. I'll see you guys the next time when you assume your post and we chop it up about the boys in burgundy and gold. Until then, you guys, take care.
LouieTeeNetwork.